Thank you. I was asked to come here by John Cherry. I guess he heard me speak in Salina, Kansas a couple years ago. And so he wanted me to kind of share what we're doing in the central United States. A lot of what we're doing, I see around here, I mean, you all are kind of similar to us, except for I think you all do get more rainfall. Possibly, and the weather's pretty close. We get the 4 seasons. We get spring, summer, fall, and winter. We are a 100% pasture grazing. We feel like if we have to feed animals grain, we're not going to be in that business because I don't want to give away all of my money. It also doesn't make sense. You know, folks, in the United States, about 98% of all the beef animals that we raise are put in a feedlot and fed corn. We're feeding them corn, so we've taken this beautiful animal, which is a herbivore, and we've turned her into a grainivore. She can harvest solar energy and give us meat that's healthy for our animals. It's healthy for the people that eat it. It's healthy for the environment. And people say, but you got to make it marbled. Really? Why do we have to make the meat marbled? In the United States right now, about 70% of all our meat, we're grinding into hamburger. Why do you got to get it marbled to grind it into burger? Okay, I'll get off my stump on that. I think there's a lot of opportunity out here to make a good living on land solely using animals. We came by this the hard way. I was going bankrupt. I was doing everything conventional back in 1996, 97. And I read an article, and it said your sole purpose in life should not be to own the land, but to control the land. And I thought about that a minute. I'm like, by golly, he's right. And so I got out and I started leasing land around us. Idle land that nobody wanted. It didn't have any fence on it. It didn't have any water on it. We know how to do that. We know how to put water out. We know how to put fence out. And so long story short, today we've got 16 farms. They're all within 5 miles of our house. And we don't haul livestock anywhere except for when we sell them. So we just make a cattle drive. Now we live in a rural area. We walk the cows, the whole mob, up and down these gravel roads. And it's pretty nice when you can have animals walk to the next home. Very low stress. It's one animal unit, one big animal unit. And it works really well. So I changed our grazing methods. In 2006, I switched to holistic high-density grazing. I was using MIG. MIG is management intensive grazing, where you're setting them on a calendar, basically, and you're moving them every 2 days. With the holistic high-density grazing, I started focusing on getting my animals tighter, but moving them more frequently. Kind of trying to duplicate what happened on the prairies of North America for thousands of years. Okay? What we found out was we're getting more grass volume now, and the quality's going up. And that's because we're getting animals to trample this on the ground. It's carbon, litter. Folks, we've got to get more litter trampled on the ground. Remember this, for every grass blade that you can get a ruminant animal to trample on the ground gives you 2 back. Is that a good investment? Absolutely. Sometimes it's better to trample it on the ground than it is to put it through an animal. If you're trying to build some soil, think of it as a savings account. And this is a really hard thing for you to get over. It was for me, and I'll share it with you all. I was trained that you needed to graze it. When those animals left that paddock, you needed to take it, otherwise you wasted it. No. You need to learn that leaving some behind with each grazing pass is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Okay? We're starting to see more plant species diversity. We do have perennial pastures, folks. It's all perennial. I have played around 1 year with putting annuals. I just drilled it right into my perennial pasture. I think I may have some pictures of that. But I tell you, when you get a perennial pasture, folks, and you get a good heavy sod underneath your pastures, When's the most expensive time to own an animal? At the winter. 80% of the cost of keeping a cow on your farm is encountered in the wintertime. What if you could graze several more weeks or months? Start out by cutting your hay feeding in half. It's a noble goal. That's what we do now. The shortest period we've ever fed hay on our farms has been 8 days. 8 days. The longest we've ever fed has been 3 months, which is last winter. We didn't get any fall rain, so we didn't grow a lot of grass. But folks, with this type of grazing, we can grow a ton of grass with not a lot of rainfall. So we're getting less hay feeding. I stopped seeding. We don't seed anymore. No fertilizer, no lime. And over 8 years, we've been able to double the number of animals. Now, how did we do that? We did it by building the litter bank, taking all of our herds. I used to have 3 herds. I put them all into one. Folks, I worked 40 hours a week in town. I was moving 3 herds twice a day, morning and night. And I got to see my wife about 9:30 at night. And the old guy from Africa was there, Ian. You'll hear me talk about Ian a little bit. Ian said, Greg, what you're doing is not sustainable. Get those cows and put them together. And I'm like, Ian, I can't do that. Because my farms were all spread out. And if I put all my cows on that farm, then I got to put them in a trailer to haul them to the next. He goes, the last time I checked, a cow had 4 legs. Make them walk. And so we brainstormed it. We've done that ever since. We've got one big herd, and they're kept together 365 days of the year. The heifers, the baby calves, the bulls, everything. And it's not a perfect system. It absolutely is not. But I have not found another management system or operation that pays more than what we're doing right now. And that's because we have this big horsepower engine. See, I used to have like 3 40 or 50 horsepower engines. Now we've got one big one, 350 head in one herd. So right now, we haven't had any rain at home now for 8 weeks. Nothing. We just got an inch on Monday. Folks, the neighbors are feeding hay already. We're months away from feeding hay because we've got one herd. If you've got 3 herds on your farm and you're going around your farm with 3 herds, you just cut your recovery period in half. Big time. You put them all together instead of having 3 set herds, now you've got 1. It's a huge tool. Rest. This is overgrazing. Don't get confused. Everybody says, oh, I want to mob graze. I want to mob graze. I did that. That's me. My first year. Do you all see a problem there? The problem, folks, is right underneath that wire. The cows reached under the wire to get something to eat. That is overgrazing. You go out to move that wire in the morning, you've seen where it looks like you took a lawnmower and moved it and mowed it on this side of that wire. You're not doing yourself any good. And you're not doing your pastures any good. And you sure as heck aren't doing your cows any good. You should never put them in there that tight. If you do, move them. Don't leave them there that long. That would have been fine if I'd left them there about half that amount of time. There we go. I love that picture. Folks, there's dollar signs laying all over the ground out there. I'm serious. That is a bank account. You know why? Because I know there's going to be something to graze there when I come back. Even in a drought, I've got feed for my livestock. I love that picture. Oh, you know who did that work for me? It wasn't a tractor. It wasn't a mower or a rake or a baler. The darn cows did that. While they're probably getting bred, the one that's sucking is putting on weight. Folks, we got a wonderful animal. We have a wonderful animal. We got to learn to use her better. This is my neighbor on the side. He's got about 120 acres, and he continues to graze. Can you tell which one of those is going to grow the most grass? This is our farm on the left. They're only on that farm. There's 50 acres there. They're there for 8 days. but they're there for 8 days about 5 times a year. So we'll come back. So in the springtime, people say, Greg, how often do you move them? It depends. If the grass is growing real fast, you've got to move them faster. You get into summer in a drought like you are in right now, you want to lengthen that up a little bit. It may be 60 or 70 days. I like to see my plants, when I come back, the tip of the plant should have a point on it. If it doesn't have a point on the tip, it's not ready to graze. Okay? Well, that's winter. My neighbor, you can see somewhere where he's been putting out hay. Yeah, this pointer doesn't work. The cattle ate all of his hay. You can just see a little residual of there. Folks, this is hay. It's standing hay, but the cows would rather do that than eat out of a hay bed. So we need to be aware of our surroundings. Changes happen daily. You've got to be willing to change your management. Take the blinders off. I used to look at a calendar. I go, okay, today's Monday. I don't move my cows till Wednesday. I went by that. That's what we were trained to do. I almost went broke doing that. You've got to watch what's happening around you. If you get plenty of rain and it's growing really well, you can probably do fine moving them every 30 to 45 days before you come back. If you've got them in there fairly tight and you get 3 inches of rain in the night, you don't want to put them on a small paddock the next morning. You've got to spread them out. Because if you don't, they'll destroy your pasture. They're big animals. You know, our animals aren't as big as everybody else's. I'm going to get into that in a minute. So that's what we are. Folks, that's a bull. We are selling seed stock now because we've developed a breed. We didn't develop it, but we took this breed and we developed the size we want. This is called the South Pole. It's a Hereford, Centipole, Red Angus, and Barzona. 25% of each one. It does real well on fescue, which is the main grass that we have. A lot of people in the Midwest are killing fescue with Roundup. They're spraying it to try and get it out of their pastures. We're making a good living with it. And that's because we're using the diversity. The animals trample this fescue on the land, and it comes back. We get a lot of other stuff. And we also, the animals that can't eat fescue, they give me a health issue. Guess what happens to them? They go find another home. You've got to be the predator. I cannot stress that enough. You have to be the predator on your farm. We don't have lions and leopards anymore. In Africa, Ian still has predators that kill. We don't have that. So we have to be the predator in our herd. And if we'll select every animal out that doesn't perform, you will end up with a really nice, balanced group of animals that are adapted to your soil and your forages. If you get that animal up and doctor it, pour something down its back to get rid of the parasites and all that stuff, just remember this: everything you put on your animals, any kind of petroleum product you put on your animals, where does it end up? In your soil. Yeah. We like to watch the livestock behavior. How are they acting? In other words, when we move them into a paddock, are they all running around? Are they bawling? They shouldn't be doing that. You move animals into a paddock in 20 minutes, everything should be quiet. They're going to bawl to find their baby. But once they find their baby, everything should be calm. If they're nervously walking around, you're doing something wrong. Go check out what's going on. Listen to your animals. Recovery, we talked about that. Let's make sure we have a full recovery period. And the gut feel, that's one that you can monitor daily. I think I have a picture on that. Water, we just heard over here on the state. What did they say? How much water is in the state? Y'all remember that? 71%. Well, do we want to give our animals compromised water? Absolutely not. It's the cheapest thing you can put in your animals. They've showed some tests in America. The calf that went off of a cow that had good water all summer long, wasn't drinking brackish, bacteria-infected water, their calves weaned 50 pounds heavier than the control. that got crappy water. 50 pounds. Well, if you got 25, 30 calves out there, that's a lot of money you left on the table just because you didn't give them good water. And the litter. You've got to get some litter on the ground. You've got to trample this litter. Why is litter so important? It's the interceptor for that. Keeps the sunlight off your soil so it doesn't dry out. It collects rainwater. It feeds the soil microbes. You know, we've got fungi, we've got bacteria, we've got nematodes, all these critters. There was a really great doctor. She doesn't put much out anymore. I wish she did, but she's retired now. Her name was Dr. Pat Richardson. I was fortunate enough that I did a couple workshops with Pat years ago. She did a study where they took a soil life sample. She's got a 60-power micron electric microscope, digital. She can blow these animals up into live critters. Folks, there was stuff in there that looked like giraffes running around. There was these big, nasty-looking things with wings that had points, and they were diving into anaconda. Big old, long, nasty-looking worms and sucking the blood out of them. This is all happening under good, healthy soil. There's more life in the soil than there is above the ground on healthy soil. So she took a sample of good, healthy soil, and she asked the farmer if she could take a tillage. She took one pass, just with a disc, and she didn't cut very deep. One pass across that pasture. And then she went out and took another soil sample 3 days later, where she could cut it. It killed 90% of the soil life. 90%. It was dead. You think about that, and we're tilling our fields? Not the way to make money. There's high quality water. You know, if it looks like it's very good water, it's clear, it's good water. Feel the sides of your tank. If it gets moss on it, that shouldn't be happening. Oh, there we go. I love manure piles. But I love these guys even more. So that's a tunneler. Some people call them rollers. They'll roll up a ball of that dung. And this is the female. This male will get on the other end of it. And they'll actually roll that thing back to a hole, which is over here. And the female will put a baby larvae dung beetle inside that. And when that dung beetle hatches out, it'll eat that manure until he's big enough that he comes to the top of the ground. Think about that. Those holes, guys, they go down about that deep. What if your farm was covered with dung beetle holes and you got a rain? Where's that rain going to go? It's not going down to your neighbor. You're going to keep it on your farm. I'm a pig. I'm not sharing my water with anybody. I want to keep every drop of it on my farm. What's the other advantage of dung beetles? Flies. The manure from that dung beetle, the adult, she lives on the manure Slurpee. She's sucking the juice out of that manure pat. Do you think the fly larvae that's hatched in there is going to be able to hatch? Nope. End of fly cycle. We in America have a product called Ivamac. It came in real popular back in the late 70s. Matter of fact, my neighbor was the first one to carry it. He was a licensed distributor. And that stuff went all the way across America, and we pretty much destroyed our dung beetles. We just don't have them. We had 1,500 different species in America alone at one time. They're still there, and we're getting them back because we don't pour. How often to move the herd? Fast growth, you move them fast. Slow growth, you move them slower. And a lot of it depends on your labor resources. If you have a job in town, there's nothing wrong with that. I did that for years. You've got to make those moves compatible with your family life and your job in town. So pick something that works and work with that. Moderate frame. We want the animals to have a big gut. We like to have the wrinkles on the neck, the shorter legs. And one thing I look for is right here. I want the bones to be very dense. I don't want a great big bone on my animal. If you got a lot of bone on the back legs, that tells me you've got a high maintenance animal. It's going to take a lot of feed to get that animal through the wintertime. Also, remember this. The more air between the ground and the gut, how much does that bring when you sell it at the sale barn? Nothing. So the more leg they have on them, we call that a leggy animal, that animal is going to cost you a lot of money. Okay? You don't want those on your farm. You want the animals to have the shorter legs. Folks, we're in the grass business. We're not in the feedlot business. And I get this argument. I did a conference in East Germany before I came here. And all the guys stood up, we got to get them big. I'm like, you just told me you're losing $250 to $350 an animal. They got a 6-month winter there. But we got to get them big. And I'm like, you just told me you're losing money. Don't you want to change? We can't. What do you mean you can't? Folks, would you rather have 2 1,500-pound cows on your farm or 3 1,000-pound cows? Now I'm talking solely grass. We're not going to grain them. We're not going to give them any silage, just grass. And we're going to finish them on grass at 24 months. Which animal is going to be easier to finish? The offspring off of a 1,500-pound cow or the offspring off of a 1,000-pound cow? I can tell you we're doing it. It's the 1,000-pound cow. And with 3 1,000-pound cows, I've got an extra calf. For the same amount of feed that it took to do 2 1,500-pound cows. But here's the big one. I just told you about our winter program. We don't have a sacrifice area on our farm. In other words, we don't have an area we lock them up and put them. We continually graze all 1,600 acres of our farm, all winter long. So those cows are putting the poo and the pee out on the pasture. It'll grow me more grass the next year. And they're not tearing up our pastures. I had the big cows. We did custom grazing for 7 years. Jan and I, that's how we got out of debt. We got paid $1 a day for somebody else's cow on our farm. Well, we had to take what we got, and we got the big ones. Those 14, 15, 1,600-pound cows. And folks, when it rained at night, I couldn't sleep. Because I knew what those big cows are doing to our pasture. Think about that. These little cows, you are in England, you get a lot of wet, puggy areas. These smaller frame animals will sure winter nicer. They're not going to tear your pastures up. You know, back before a white man arrived, what did the animals do in the wintertime? Was somebody out there feeding them hay? Not in North America. Those buffalo, they just kept moving. I was crying to Ian one day. We had a lot of rain. My animals are tearing the pasture up. I was just moaning, oh, this is terrible. I'd emailed him in Africa, and he goes, Greg, did the buffalo all look at each other when it got raining? They just looked at each other, we're going to stay here? No, they moved. They spread out and they moved, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to move them. How much forage do you leave? I like to leave enough for another day. So if I had to, and I had to leave them on that paddock for another day, there would be enough feed there for another day. Don't take over half. We like to take 1/3 of the plant. So we're taking the top third. This is our mob. This is a pasture that used to be all cedars and moss. Today, it's a very vibrant pasture. It's got all kinds of different species on it. And it didn't take any fossil fuel to do that. Just good grazing management. Folks, until you get the land converted with animals on it, these people, those of you all in the crowd that are doing cover crops, let me share a little tip with you. Gabe Brown, the biggest cover crop guy in probably the United States, North America. I asked Gabe, Gabe's a good friend of mine. I said, Gabe, how did you go from 0.5% organic matter to 11%? You know he's got pastures up over 11% now? How did he do it? He said, Greg, if I'd have learned sooner to put the livestock in right at the very start, I'd be so much further ahead. But he's a crop farmer, so he didn't do that. He terminated it. He rolled it on the ground. But when he put the livestock in, that's when things exploded. That's when things exploded. And so figure it out. Even if you don't own livestock and you have a neighbor that does, you need that biology out of that gut so you can make more money on your crop farm. That's when things took off for Gabe. You know, Gabe got a 13-inch ring. inches. In about, I forgot the time span, it was overnight. All his neighbors' fields were just solid water. Gabe held every inch of it. Gabe held every inch of that rainfall. For every 1% increase in organic matter on your farm, you hold 25,000 gallons of water. So if he's got 11% organic matter, do the math on that. He's holding a ton of water. We invest money in animals. If it eats grass, has a baby every year while building soil, sign me up. Okay, I'm ready to talk to you. But don't come trying to sell me metal. Okay? I'll send you down to my neighbor. But I'm not going to buy metal when I can buy livestock. It's the power of grass. It builds healthy soil. It's free. It's a solar panel. And so think about this a minute. If this is my grass blade, and I bring in my livestock into this paddock, and we're using the tongue to rip off the top third of that plant, just the top third, I'm moving. But Greg, there's still 2/3 of the plant left. Yep. But my animals already told me which one they preferred. They like that tip. That's where your energy is the highest. Move them. Move them to the next paddock. You've left 2/3 of that solar collector intact. It's going to catch the sun. It's going to grow back a lot faster, and you're not using the roots. See, the roots have carbohydrates stored up in it for energy. You don't want to use the roots to push the plant back up. You want to use this. This is free. Use the sun. So what do you get? When the plants are taken off 1/3, the animal performance is through the roof. You're moving your animals out of the dung and the pee. You're trampling sun to feed the soil microbes, and you're gone. And you could come back a lot sooner because you left a very powerful plant intact. If you take off 50% of the roots are sloughed off. Those roots have to replenish themselves before they start growing top again. Okay? We stopped doing that. I did this for years. I was told that when you saw a plant in the springtime, 4 inches, by God, you better get on it. Because if you didn't, the seed heads would come and you would never catch up with it. Well, what does a plant, what's its sole purpose in life of a plant? Somebody. To put on seed. Did you know that when things get stressed, they reproduce? What do people do after wars? They breed. It's the same thing with plants. If you stress a plant, it's going to put up a seed head immediately because it's not sure that it's going to survive. It's not sure, so it's going to put up a seed head. If a plant's not stressed, you're going to get more leaves. Folks, we're selling leaves. So we want plants to put up a lot of leaves. If you're grazing that immature plant in the springtime and taking it off, you're killing yourself. You're losing about 40% of the entire forage on your farm for the whole growing season. 40%. Let those plants get a little head start. That's a beautiful picture. Folks, what people do in Missouri is they feed hay during this period because this is springtime. We call it the spring flush. And most of the time it's dangerous to stand behind a cow in the spring flush. Because that poo is going from here to that sign, and it's running, and what's happening to her? She's not getting any energy. It's all protein. It's running. The grass doesn't have any body to it. Well, look at our pastures. We always have some pasture left in the early spring that looks like this. That dry stuff you see out there, that's the winter stockpile that was grown last fall. And so the cows come into our pastures in the spring, they're going after that green. But guess what? When they reach out with their tongue and rip off a chunk of that, they can't get solid green. They're going to take some dry matter in with it. So that is my little bit of dry matter that helps balance that rumen, doesn't give it an upset gut in the springtime. It's critical to have a little bit of that left over for your spring flush. It's got to be regenerative. Minimal inputs. We don't believe in any cultivation. You know, I asked Gabe Brown what he thought was excess cultivation. And he said the marker on a drill. Yeah, that's excess cultivation. Each year should be better. In other words, think about this a minute. Jan and I have been able to double the number of livestock on our farm in 8 years without buying or adding any more land onto our farm. If you look at the economics of that, what's that equal to? Free farm. We're running double the amount of animals. Ian says it gets better. I don't believe him, but he said we can quadruple our stocking rate from what we started with. I don't think we ever will. But I'm willing to try. He has in Africa. Ian's running 7,000 head of cattle now in one herd, and they're on a 40-acre pasture for an hour. Okay, that's, when you hear these big numbers, folks, remember, wait a minute, how long were they there? That's a big deal. That's a big deal. We're capturing energy with leaves. Folks, that's just a fat animal. We talk about lean beef. We don't want lean beef. It doesn't have any flavor to it. We want the grass fat. The grass fat is showing all this health benefits. I mean, my dad, when he was growing up, they never fed grain. They just went out and shot the biggest, fattest calf. Shot it right out there on the pasture. And I grew up eating that meat. It was good. I don't remember having to gnaw on it. It was just good grass meat. How do you know when they're finished? Folks, right here's a clue. Right there on that tail head, they need to have a minimum of 3 wrinkles. They do. They need 3 wrinkles on that tail head. Their brisket should be full. And when they walk away from you, they should look like a fat person walking away. They need to have a waddle. I would never finish on grass. They'd just shoot me and grind me up. Because I'm a high-maintenance animal, okay? I got too much leg underneath me. But that animal was fat, and he was good. Can you all tell me something wrong with that animal? Come on, let's be critical. What's wrong with him? What? What'd you say? The shit on his ass. No, that don't bother me too bad. It's the hair. See, he's still got a little bit of his winter hair coat. He shouldn't have had that. Hell, that's July. Your animal should be slicked off by June. If they're still carrying a winter hair coat, that's something that you need to learn to call for. Animals that will not shed. Why aren't they shedding? They're not processing the grass. They're not adapted to your farm. Maybe they have internal parasites. Folks, did you all know when a cow wakes up in the morning, they don't ask themselves, I'm going to make Greg some money today? What do they care about? Breathing till the next day. That's all they care about. So it's up to us to get them off the farm. Just get them off. We got him off. We butchered him and we ate him and he was good. So we changed the paradigms. We are now 80% leased, 20% owned. Our cattle, for everything that we sell, a percentage of that cow sale goes into a land account. When our cow herd generates enough money to buy another farm, we buy another farm. So the cows are buying more land as the profits accumulate. That's how we're buying these farms. We sold the equipment, and now we focus on adapted animals. Did you all know that on your farm, I don't know what size animal is perfect for you, but I'll give you this as a parameter. If you don't haul any outside inputs in, and if you don't supplement those animals with purchased feed, over about 7 to 10 years, your soil type will pick out the right size animal for your farm. That's what we did. That's how we got to it. Our cows are 950 pounds. That's what they had. If we get up to a 1,100-pound cow in our herd, they fall to pieces. And that's because our soil can't support these big ones. Now, if you go up north of me, in the plains where the prairie left a lot of topsoil up there when the glaciers came through. Folks, they got topsoil in northern Missouri 20 foot deep. 20 feet. Well, those animals are bigger than mine. I've got topsoil about that deep. Okay, then I hit clay. We don't have a lot of sand, not much rock. It's a heavy, heavy clay. Earthworms. If you get up to 25 worms per square foot, it's about 40 tons of castings per acre per year. A worm lives for 7 years. Him and his offspring and all of his kids and grandchildren, they're equal to 1.2 million worms. Are we talking some serious numbers here? I think so. So let's feed the soil. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil is equal to 1 billion microbes. The microbial life, you've got to have that. If you don't, if you got a manure pat on your farm and it's still there 70 to 90 days later, you don't have a lot going on in your soil. Those manure pats should be disappearing. Something should be taking them into the soil. This is a plant that we didn't see much of until we started mob grazing. This is called eastern gamagrass. It is a perennial warm season. It comes back every year. It's a member of the corn family. It likes a lot of beating up. We beat it up, and that's what came back. So we look at this. You know, this is something that happens every year. We had some pasture we couldn't keep up with. So in the springtime, you start grazing around your farm, and you're 3/4 of the way around. And everything's going to seed heads in front of you. In other words, it's getting away from you. But behind you, where you started up by the house, those pastures have regrown. There's not a seed head on that plant yet, but you can see the stem starting to come out of that leaf. Stop grazing forward, build a lane with polywire, and get that cow herd back to where you started. Those plants are ready to graze. Leave that. That was the 30% we didn't graze in the spring. And then we got into a drought in July. No rain, 100-degree temperature, humidity 90%. And we brought those cows back into here, and this is what we did. I got pictures of it. Look. There is so much life in there, folks. It builds a lot of life for songbirds, spiders, the amphibians. There's just billions of pounds of life in that. And so that 30% of your farm that you give a rest to in the springtime, that will be your best pasture that next winter. You're going to have a good stockpile of grass out there. Because you let it go. Remember, one of the most powerful tools you have in your grazer's toolbox is what? Rest. Give it a sabbatical. Let it put down some roots. I'll give you an example. We have a farm we leased in 2001. There's 160 acres. The old guy had 12 cows and a bull on it for 70 years. Not the same cow and bull. He never rotated, ever. He gave him the whole farm. 12 cows and a bull. And you could go out there in April, which is the spring flush. You go out there in July. It didn't matter what month you went out there and lay the golf ball down and hit it. You could see it bounce 400 yards. I can't drive a ball that far. 200 yards. You can see it bounce. We got that farm leased. Jan and I leased that in 2001. The first thing we did was we gave it a whole growing season off. We didn't do nothing to it. That's this farm. That's it. Folks, today it is unbelievable the forage that is on that farm. Just because we gave it a sabbatical. So rest is not a bad thing. Is over-rest a bad thing? Yes. You can give it too much. One species supports 8. That's a big one. We like to see some different diversity on our farm. We're wildlife friendly now. We're predator friendly. We don't shoot any predators. We had a guy come in. He was trapping coyotes and bobcats. We started losing lambs. And the neighbors, they had a professional trapper come in. They trapped over 60 coyotes in this guy's area. It got so bad that next lambing season that he had to put a sheep behind poly net in the daytime. the coyotes are coming in the daytime. You see, a coyote mates for life. You kill his mate, 8 more come in to take his place. And all those really don't know what's going on. They just start killing. Ian did the same thing. He used to shoot the leopards and lions on his ranch. Every time he did, he started losing baby calves. And finally, he put it together. The new chap on the block's got to learn the ropes. How much time do I have? Am I supposed to go?
Yeah.
I got 15 minutes.
Yes, but people will want to ask you questions.
Okay, I'll try.
So you have to bear that in mind.
All right, I'll try and get done sooner than that. So, be careful. Guys, I used to wake up every morning and go, and ladies, what can I kill this morning? What can I go out and kill? Because that's our mentality, whether it's a piece of brush or whatever. No. I look for that. Go out in your pastures. There should be spider webs everywhere in the morning during the growing season. Not in the winter, but in the growing season. You should see spider webs everywhere. Do tractors have calves? No. I feel like metal does destroy wealth. It must eat grass, and that is our future. Here's a farm we leased 3 years ago. It's owned by a judge in the local town. And his dad, he inherited it from his dad. And his dad and I, we never really could come together on an agreement. Well, this guy, he was spending $500 a year on brush hogging. He would brush hog it. And I'm like, I will brush hog it for you for free. And he goes, really? I'm like, yeah, I got those kind of brush hogs. Well, he said, I don't have any fence. I said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So our cows are so trained to fence that we can just put one hot wire around all the open area, and that's it. It's one high tensile wire, 170,000 PSI, hooked to a Safex charger, 10,000 volts. If you touch it, you'll swear you'll never, ever touch it again. You might even find something going down your leg. It's hot. It's hot. It'll leave a burn mark on your skin. It sounds like a .22 rifle going off. But this guy, he got it, and he had this farm, and he just texted me, great, my farm's ready for your cattle. He wants to know when I put him on it so he can take off his work. He schedules that on his vacation, so he can sit out there at night with a cold drink in his rocking chair. He's got one of those rocking chairs. He sits out in his yard and watches these cows graze. And he brings his mom with him. They love it. They love it. And he's killing bigger deer now. He's a deer hunter. This is a former broom sedge field, just with animal impact, laying that broom sedge on, putting hay out in the wintertime, unrolling hay. We did that. That's some pretty good grass. So there's the litter bank. So we just trampled that on the ground the last time, and we left. Now there's a lot of good feed in there. If I'd left the cattle there another 12 hours or even a day, they'd have ate all that, but I didn't want them to eat it. Folks, all you've got to do is do like a cripper. Take the blade, lay it on the ground. You've broken that stem, and it's broken the sap flow back to the root. You've got a whole farm load of carbon covering your soil. It's your savings account. It's not waste. Riparian zones. This is getting to be a big issue in the United States. Keep the cattle out of the creeks. I agree. But a pulse grazing has done that for us. So the animals we put in there, we had 380 cows on that for about 8 hours. They've pushed the banks closer together, and look at the grass. I mean, the grass is right up to the edge of the water. It's filled with water. That was dry when I leased that farm. But now we're catching all the water up on the hills. It's slowly releasing it to the aquifers. We've got fish in these streams now. There's frogs in there. There's another one. That's big bluestem. That's a perennial. It's just come back. We didn't plant that. It's in the soil bank. And I'll challenge everybody in this room that has livestock. You've got seeds in your soil bank that you've never seen. You've got to graze it differently to see it, though. This is that same farm we left off I showed you earlier. So we put our paddock in. The cows are coming into it. That's what it looked like after 12 hours. We put 100,000 pounds of livestock meat per acre on there for 12 hours. That's what they did. So that's what it looked like right after we took him out. Look at that. But Greg, you wasted all that grass. Look what happened. Look at the clover coming up. All the grass that young man was holding, guess where it's at? There it is. It's all that dead stuff. That's your litter bank. That's your litter bank. What's underneath there? Look at this. Oh, dang it. I don't have it. There was worms. The ground was covered with earthworm castings. This is a 9-way cocktail that I tried. $47 acre seed cost. I'm not much of a farmer, as you can tell. You can see I skipped. I did put it right into fescue, though. And it did that. 8 weeks, I didn't get a single rain on it from the time I drilled it. It made some pretty good grazing. Our deer hunters, healthy soil, healthy animals. Guys, ladies, let's get them fat. Look at the gut on that animal. You think it can hold some grass? Absolutely. This is my neighbor. He decided to be a crop farmer. He plowed his grain. He plowed his pastures up, putting soybeans. This is the water coming off ours after a 3-inch rain event. Look at the water. You see a difference in the color? He didn't want his soil, so we're taking it. This is the biggest wow that we've ever seen on our farm. This is in the end of March. We went out and I opened up a manure pat and I hollered at my intern and said, "Justin, run to the barn and get a tub." And we opened up this manure pat and we kept count. We counted 462 earthworms in one manure pot. Now do the math on that. 462 times, what was that? 1.7 million worms? I mean, we're talking biology, folks. We're talking healthy soil. Every manure pad in that farm was gone within a week or two. They just took it. What did they do with it? They turned it into earthworm castings. Folks, an earthworm casting has a pH of 7. I think somebody knew what he was doing. Hey, 80% is hay. Let's learn how to winter stockpile. Bare soil, you will go bankrupt. Don't get comfortable with bare soil. Fix it. If you remove nature's skin, that's what it is. You've taken her skin off. You've got bare soil now, and you're going to go broke. You've got to keep your soil. Don't get comfortable going in the winter having your whole farm bare dirt. That's not right. There ain't nothing right about it. There you go. Look at that. Look at all these little pebbles. I mean, you pour water on that, it's like a dang sponge. It just soaks it all up. Keep it simple. One herd, if you can do it. Increase your density. Stop fighting nature. We've done that. Multi-species. Whoops. Call, we got to be the predator. There's some of our pastured pigs. They go out on, there's our hair sheep flock in the springtime. Stay focused on grass. Folks, there was an old guy told me, folks, I still got the checkbook. I don't like talking about it, but I'll tell y'all anyway. I got a checkbook when I was down and out. I was in a divorce, went on for 6 years. And I had $8 left in my checking account. And I had an old guy tell me, he said, "Greg," and I was right in the middle, just starting. He goes, "Greg, if you stay focused on animals that harvest grass, a green blade of grass, you will come out of this." And guess what? He was right. All the other neighbors were buying four-wheelers and new trucks and tractors and the latest gizmo that came down the block. I stayed focused on my grass, management of my grass. Water and fence. That's what harvests grass. If you can't control your animals, where they're at on your farm, you're not going to make any money. This kiwi tech stand out here. Everybody that's thinking about grazing needs to go visit those guys. I've been to their factory in New Zealand. They've got some pretty, they've got it down. They've got it down where you can move these animals. And it doesn't have to be half a day. We can have 380 in one herd. It takes us minutes to I better stop right there. And that's our website. We'll take a few questions if anybody has any.
What, you got a question? Yes.
Are you into direct meat sales, or what happens to your high-quality offspring?
Yeah, the question was, what do we do with our offspring, the ones that we don't sell as seed stock? Yes, we're into direct sales. Everything that's born on the farm, we don't sell anything as a weaned calf. We don't wean anymore. We make the cows wean the calves. And so at 24 months of age, they are harvested as a grass-fed beef. Folks, if you got a calf that's adapted to your farm, why would you sell it to the sale barn? It's already adapted to you and your soil. Get that weight put on there. If nothing else, sell a heavy yearling the next spring. Good question. Yes?
You touched a bit on the sheep. Could you explain a bit more about your sheep system, and do you put them into such high covers?
The question was on our sheep. How do we manage those and how do we rotate them? We have sheep paddocks that are permanently fenced. We have 16 of them. There's 4 hot wires on all 4 sides. So they're rotated from one paddock to the next, but now we've got into strip grazing them with, we started out with 3 poly wires, went down to 2, now we're down to 1. 1 wire with sheep. And they've got guardian dogs in there with them as well. See, the reason this works, folks, is that wire's got 10,000 volts in it, okay? Also is the sheep don't get hungry. If a sheep gets hungry, he's going to move himself. And when he moves himself, he's taking the whole flock with him. But if you move them with strip grazing like every day or day and a half, our sheep are in there. And the babies, they can go in the wire. I don't care about that. They'll come back. But this strip grazing with sheep, folks, that's why we don't worm. We've never wormed our sheep, ever. But they're not, sheep have a campsite. They reinfect themselves by going back to that same spot every night to lay out, and they step in that manure, they're picking up parasites. So if they're moving, they don't have a chance to reinfect themselves.
Do you have any experience of mob grazing in an arable rotation? And if you do, what tips have you got?
Do I have any experience in an arable situation? Yeah, there's people doing it out west. And with arable land, where you're talking about where you don't have a lot of rainfall, or just cropland? Cropland. I'm sorry. Cropland's tough to get converted because you don't have any well, I shouldn't say any. You have lower organic. It's been nuked with glyphosates, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and so there's not a lot of soil life in there. So what I did, I got a farm that was arable. It was cropped. The first thing I did was I just started grazing what came up. And then that winter, I came in, I buy my hay. I don't put it up. We can buy purchased hay. And I started unrolling hay. So I was getting carbon laid out. We unroll it out on the land, and we fed the livestock that carbon on the land. Folks, today it's unbelievable. I mean, that arable farm is now a perennial pasture. That should be your goal, to get to a perennial pasture. That's where we want to be. I mean, these cover crops are great to get you there, but darn it, I don't like tillage. I just hate it. I do. I want to make some money. Yeah.
Okay, so your farm is obviously very big, and you obviously have a dip in the middle of summer, I'm guessing, when it's hottest, when you don't have much growth. In this country, farms are livestock, grassland farms are obviously much smaller. Especially in the West, we don't see that dip in the summer so much. How applicable do you think that the system that you're advocating is to the type of grassland livestock farms?
It doesn't matter what size. Here? It doesn't matter what size farm you have. You have got to scale it up to where, on that piece of ground, when you come around, you always stock based on a drought. If you'll stock your farm based on a drought, you're never going to run out of feed. If you base it on the spring growth, where everything's growing fast, you're going to run out of feed in the summertime. So base it on what it will carry in the summer. And you may have to sell some animals. We sell animals every year because you got to sell something. So when the plants aren't regrowing, in other words, you went around a full recovery, you went around a full season, a full recovery period, and the plants aren't recovering very well. you need to start selling some animals. The longer you wait to sell animals, the more of them you're going to have to sell because you're running out of feed. It's called eating your seed corn. That's kind of what you're doing. But, you know, our farms range from 20 acres all the way up to, our biggest farm is 260. So we have some small farms, but we made them, and that's something I'll challenge you on. Look around your neighborhood. Is there a 10-acre field that somebody's doing hay on? Is there 20 acres of brush over here that maybe you could talk to the landowner? Anytime you can get another piece of ground to put your livestock on, even for a month, oh my gosh, that is worth a lot of money, okay? Because you're giving your place a sabbatical. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Sorry,
Okay.
the question was, if you're running your animals in one herd, do you not have problems with the heifers getting served too early?
I knew you were going to ask that. Do we have problems with the heifers getting bred by running in one herd? Not so much. We've had it happen, but because we make the cows wean their calves, if you break the mother-daughter relationship between a cow and a heifer, that heifer is a lot more apt to take a bull. If you let the cow naturally wean the calf, she's not as likely to take a bull. And also, we don't treat our heifers any differently than we do our cows. And so we don't get them up, we don't feed them any supplement to get them to put on weight. They're eating the same forage that our cows are eating. They're not cycling. So we don't have that big of a problem with it. Not enough that I'm going to change what I'm doing. But that's a good question.
Oh, hi, Greg. Summer annuals, planting summer annuals.
You put it to your mouth.
Summer annuals, planting them into perennials. What are your thoughts on it? I've watched your YouTube videos of your first one. Is it economic? Would you advocate to us and the plant types?
I told you I'm just tight as heck. Okay. I don't want to spend money unless I can make 10 back. Okay. If I spend $1, I want $10 back. The cover crop thing worked great on that year. I even planted in a drought. Okay. It still grew, and that's because our soil biology is so high that cover crop just leaped out of that fescue. I thought it was going to kill my fescue. Well, you saw how tall it got. That was without a rain. I thought it was going to kill my fescue. But after doing the numbers on it, it didn't make economical sense. When I can grow fescue, red clover, lespedeza, lucerne, all these other grasses, then I don't have to buy it. That's what it came down to. So I'm not bad-mouthing cover crops at all. But in my environment, we're in a 38 to 40-inch rainfall. That's what we get. We can do pretty well without the covers. And Gabe Brown really chewed my butt. He came onto our farm at the grass-fed exchange. Where's your cover crops? I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't have. Well, you should have. And I'm like, okay, I should have. And we tried them, and so I'm not going to sit here and badmouth covers because I think there's definitely a spot for them. And we call the summer slump, which I think that's what you're going for. Folks, if you can get a summer annual in there, in our country, we don't put it in the ground to the temperature 72 degrees. Don't get in a hurry. It's a warm season. Man, that thing can really give your summer pasture a good rest. And you may have more fall growth there. We call that winter stockpile. So I think there is a place for it.
One more question.
Yeah, sorry, that actually leads on from what you just said. Could you
Go ahead.
Could you explain how you manage to stockpile your winter grazing?
That's a really good question, and that's going to take up the rest of the time, but I'm going to answer it. Folks, when you start out in the spring, we call that growing our haystack. So what happens every time you graze a plant? It sends out more appendages, just like clipping a rose bush. There's more leaves, more limbs come up. It's the same way with grass. So we're taking the top third off. So we come back again. That was in 30 days. The next time we come around, it may be 45 because it's hotter and it's drier. We clip it again, just the tips. It sends out more appendages. The next time we come around, maybe July and August, just the tips. It's getting thicker. That's called growing your haystack. By the time the fall gets there, you can't hardly walk through our pastures. You got to lift your feet up. Okay? There is a ton of grass out there, but it doesn't start in the fall. It starts in the spring. By the way you graze that spring stockpile, or the spring growth. Just take the tips off. Move them. Take the tips off. Move them. Animal performance. Watch them. I kicked myself. I didn't have a picture up here. But folks, I'll show you right here. It's on this calf. Right in front of that rib bone on the side. We call that the death triangle. If that's sunken in on a cow, you're not giving them enough to eat. Go to YouTube. You can YouTube some of the videos I have. I've got animal performance on there. It'll show a picture of a cow that's not limited. That is limited. Folks, you'll go broke. Do you know if you limit those animals, about 40% of them may not breed back? So make sure you don't limit them. But the stockpile, you've got to leave some, and it starts in the spring, not in the fall. So, yeah, thank you all. And I'll be around if anybody has any more questions. I'll be around. I'm giving a talk tomorrow at 4.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Greg. Thank you.